Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Angie Norris, and today I'm going to be doing my wrap up of what my December books that I read were. And today is January the 8th, so this is a little late, but I have been out of town. We went out of town this past weekend. We spent New Year's Day at home, and then we left on Thursday, January the 2nd, and went down to the camper where we have at the beach where we have a camper, and checked on our camper, made sure the heat was on and the pipes weren't frozen. And we have a camper at the beach here in North Carolina where we live. And then I got a head cold, not the flu or COVID or anything like that, but just a head cold, a little bit of sinus congestion, and haven't felt well for about 3 or 4 days. So today was the first day I felt like doing this video. So I'm going to go over the books that I read in December. I'm going to try to do some individual reviews of these books, but for right now, this is just a wrap up, and I'm going to let you know what books I read during the month of December. So I read a total of 9 books, believe it or not, in December with Christmas. The first one that I read was a book by Fannie Flagg. It's called I Still Dream About You, and I don't have the book. I listened to this on audiobook, but that's what the cover looked like. Fannie Flagg is an author that I was introduced to last year. I think this is the 4th book I've read by her, and I have loved every one of them. I have rated every one of them a 5-star up until this one. This one was still good. I would highly recommend it. It is a historical fiction, but it was not a 5-star read for me. It was a 4-star. I gave it a 4-star rating. This book, one of the reasons that I chose it to listen to is because it was by Fannie Flagg, and because it was about a woman that was in her late 50s. She was a former Miss Alabama, and she had never married, never had any children, and she was a real estate agent. She lives in this small town in Alabama, and she was very unhappy with her life, and she was contemplating suicide. And so the whole book is about her initial, when the book opens, it's talking about, it's in first person, and she's kind of telling you about she's getting ready to commit suicide the next morning, and how she's going to do it, and all of her plans, and how she's organized everything up until then. But something interrupts her plans and waylays her plans, and then you get introduced to other characters in the book. And as I said, I did enjoy it, but 4-star read instead of a 5-star this time. So that was book number 1. I actually started that one in November and technically didn't finish the audiobook until December 1st. So that's why it ended up number 1 on the list. The second book that I read in the month of November was it was not a fictional book. It was a memoir, so to speak. The name of this book, and I actually did have the physical book, but I put it in my Pango and Whatnot shop and sold it, so I no longer have it. But here's what the cover looked like. This was a book that came out in October. It was written by Lisa Marie Presley and her daughter Riley Keough, or Keough. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, her last name. From Here to the Great Unknown, a memoir. And this was about the life of Lisa Marie Presley. And so Lisa Marie actually did start her memoir before she passed away, and then her daughter finished it. So there are parts of the book that are written by Lisa Marie, and there are parts of the book that are written by her daughter. And what they did in the book was they altered the font. So even within the same chapter, the font would change, and there would be like a little spacer bar or something. I can't remember what it was, little asterisk or something that would separate and the font would change, and you knew it was changing from Lisa Marie's words to her daughter's words. And my husband and I went on a trip in October, and we went to Graceland. And so I love Elvis Presley, and so I wanted to read this. And I will have to say that I enjoyed it, but I gave it a 3-star. I do not think that it was as well written as it could have been. It did not, it wasn't a quick read. There were times that I felt like that I was plowing through it, so to speak. I don't really know if you understand that concept or what I mean by that, but it was a 3-star out of a 5. From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie Presley and Riley Keough. The next book that I read was another audio book, and so I don't have it either, but this is what the cover looks like. And this was one of my seasonal reads. I love to read Christmas stories, Christmas books during the Christmas season. So this was one of the first ones. It was called The Christmas Joyride. It was relatively short. It's by Melody Carlson, and it was just a cozy little read. I enjoyed it tremendously and gave it 5 stars. So if you want a little short, cozy read next Christmas, I encourage you to read that one. It was about 2 women. One was a younger woman, and her next door neighbor was an 85-year-old woman that had sold her home and was moving to Arizona to live with her sons, or to move into this assisted living. And she was going to drive this huge RV down Route 66 out there. And so her neighbor decides to go with her, and just a cute little story. The next book that I read, and I actually started this one on December 1st, and I didn't finish it until 12/29. Excuse me for just a second. This is called Christmas Miscellany. Everything you ever wanted to know about Christmas. I actually picked this book up in the Tractor Supply store. And so what I did was, it was very short chapters, and just to kind of show you, I didn't realize until after I had started the book that the book was actually written in England. Let me come right back. Okay, guys, I'm sorry about that. Like I said, I had a little bit of a cough and congestion over the New Year's weekend, and I got a little bit of a lingering cough, and when I talk, it evidently started giving me a coughing spell. So let's go back to the Christmas Miscellany, everything you ever wanted to know about Christmas. And so the chapters were relatively short, maybe 3, 4, 5 pages. So like, where does the Christmas tree come from? And then, it would give you the history and answer that question. Why are cards sent at Christmas? I didn't realize that it was actually written by an author and published in the UK. It was published in 2017, but a lot of the traditions that are mentioned in here are about English traditions. But I read it every day from December 1st through December the 29th, even though it wasn't a great big book, but I read a little bit of it every day, just about a Christmas tradition. And so I ended up giving this one, what did I rate it? A 3-star. It's not a fictional book, obviously, and some of it was interesting and some of it was a little, monotonous or trivial or boring. So it wasn't a fascinating read, but I thought it would be interesting to read at Christmas about the Christmas traditions and where they come from. Okay, the next book that I read or listened to on audiobook was The Christmas Spirits on Tradd Street. And this was an audiobook. So this is what the cover looked like. This was a book by Karen White. And this one was, I think it was about 14 hours on audiobook. And when I initially picked it, I was, like I said, I was looking for a Christmas read, something about Christmas. It was available on audiobook when I was looking. It was set in Charleston, South Carolina. And I thought it was going to be like a historical fiction with a Christmas theme. And it was, but it had a little bit of a paranormal twist. So that made it even more interesting because I love paranormal stuff. And so it was about this family that owned a home there in Charleston that was a historical home, and it was haunted. Okay, so I read it. I finished it on 12/22, and I gave it a 4-star rating. It was really good. I enjoyed it. Okay, then the next one that I read was a rom-com, or I thought it was going to be like a little cozy Christmas read. It was called The Christmas Tree Farm by Lori Gilmore. And this one was in a series of 3. I had not read the other 2. You didn't really have to. The only part that would have required you to know, some of the characters were in the other book, but the actual romantic part of it, the couple that was in this book are introduced in this book only. And so you could read it as a standalone. But I was a little bit taken aback by this when I started reading it because it was a little spicy. It had some explicit sex scenes in it, which I was not expecting. I mean, it was entitled The Christmas Tree Farm. I thought it was going to be like a little cozy Christmas read. And not that I'm totally offended by that, but it was a 3-star read. It wasn't anything spectacular for me. All right, so then I read a book, another Christmas themed book called The Wish Book Christmas, and by Lynn Austin. And this one was actually published, I think in 2017, 18, something like that. Maybe even later. 21. I picked this one up at a Christian bookstore, and the back of it was just so intriguing to me because it was set in the 50s, 1951. It says, best friends Audrey and Eve can't wait to celebrate Christmas in post-war America. They are thrilled about starting new traditions with their 5-year-old sons, even daring to hope there might be fresh beginnings ahead for both of them too. They're both single mothers, they're best friends. But when the 1951 Sears Christmas Wish Book arrives and the boys start obsessing over every toy in it, Audrey and Eve realize their most important task is teaching them the true meaning of the holiday by giving presents, not just asking for them. So it's a cozy, quaint little Christmas read about 2 single moms trying to raise 5-year-old boys, and set around the Sears Christmas Wish Book and how they try to instill the values in them that it is better to give than receive. Absolutely loved it. It was a 5-star read, and I would highly, highly recommend you to read this book next Christmas if you haven't already read it. All right, then another book that I read a little bit every day when I was in Tennessee in October and went to Graceland, I bought this book, Christmas with Elvis. And this is a book that talks about, it says it's the official guide to the holidays from the King of Rock and Roll. It actually, at the first half of the book, it takes every one of Elvis's Christmas songs that he ever recorded on his 2 Christmas albums, and it goes through like who wrote it, what the story was behind Elvis recording it, any little quirky stories that went with the recording. And then the rest of the book was about things about Elvis and how he loved Christmas and his mother loved Christmas and how he decorated Graceland. And so I read a little bit every day of the book. And, but I did read, it was another book, Christmas with Elvis. I started it on the 15th and finished it on the 28th and gave this a 4-star read as well. And then the last book that I read during the month of December, it was not a Christmas read, but I had purchased this book, and this was Melania by Melania Trump. This is her memoir. I did purchase this from her website, and I was so excited to read it. I started it on 12/22, finished it on 12/31. The book itself is very well written. She is absolutely a fabulous writer. She is extremely intelligent, very well written book. And then there were lots of pictures in the middle of the book. It came with photos that they included in the book, color photos of her life growing up. There was a lot about her that I did not know. A lot of the beginning of the book is about her childhood and growing up in Slovenia, and about her parents and her sister and her upbringing, and then how she went to college and then became a model. And of course, eventually at the age of 26, moved to New York, and at the age of 28, met Donald Trump. Absolutely would highly, highly recommend this book. Gave it a 5-star. So that was my wrap up of all of my 9 books that I read during the month of December. I have a TBR recording that I'm going to do separately. I have 5 books on my TBR for January. I am having surgery in the month of January, so I'm not gonna crowd my TBR list too much for the month of January, because I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish all that with having surgery. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel, and happy reading.